Today is the fabulous Rachel Rothman, MS, RD, CLEC, lots of letters. And yeah, I think it's Monday, right? Is it Monday?
I think so, but who knows anymore, right? And
You know what? In my house, there are 2 days right now, Saturday and not Saturday.
totally.
Yeah, so, okay. Well, usually we do nap time nutrition on Tuesday, but I will be working at the hospital tomorrow. Little nervous about that. So we're doing nap time nutrition today, and we're going to be talking today about division of responsibility, which I've covered recently, but specifically division of responsibility in the time of COVID or feeding kids during quarantine, which I have been calling apocalypse. It's been like a constant slip of the tongue. So thank you so much for joining me, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Yeah, well, the reason I wanted to have Rachel on is because I know about division of responsibility. I've covered it recently. We talked about it very recently, and I covered it in depth on my Instagram before all this blew up. But things have changed a little bit. And you know, when we advise people to stay kind of chill at the table with their kids, things are different when we see that there's a food shortage and when we see that things aren't available the way that they would and our kids' favorite foods are no longer available. It's a little bit more difficult to have that chill attitude that I've been advocating. So Rachel is really good with this. I wanted to have you on, Rachel, to talk about that angle.
Yeah. And I would agree that it is challenging, and I think it's important, and we can talk more about it, like keeping the framework in mind, but thinking about creative ways that we can keep us sane and our kids sane when it comes to feeding, because our kids are now home almost all day, every day. And a lot of us are feeding our kids more times per day than we usually did, and we're together more. So just figuring out how we can find that balance is so important during this time.
It really is. So we're going to start off with just a brief description about what division of responsibility is. It's what it sounds like, division of responsibility. Each party has a responsibility. The parent has a responsibility and child has responsibility. The parent is in charge of the who, what, and when, what, where, and when, because the who should be everyone. Wow. Okay. The what, where, and when. What is being served, where it is being served, and when it is being served. Those are in the realm of the parent. They decide that. The child is in charge of whether they eat and how much they eat. And never the two shall mix. When we try to cross lines into each other's places, when the child demands particular foods, that's the parent's job. And when the parent says, just one more bite, that's the child's job. And you get contention at the table, you get drama, you get tension when you try to cross lines and do each other's jobs.
Yeah, it's a perfect sum of it. And I think that when you do try to cross those lines, there's also that pressure component that the kids feel the pressure, the parents feel the pressure, and then it usually just backfires. So, yeah.
Right, and the whole purpose is to create more joy at the table, to have more joy at the table. And I saw some meme about how all these colorful schedules are going around, and those are great. But the thing is that if we focus too much on our own agenda, and believe me, I fell into this trap. Well, like the whole day today, if we fall into the trap of following our own agenda too much at the table or with our own stuff and trying to pursue the amount of productivity we usually accomplish, we can create a traumatic time for our kids. And what they're experiencing right now is the parents are home more. So let's make the most of this time and let's increase the joy. And it's going to be a little bit harder, but we're here to help.
Yes. And I love that you brought up the schedules, because I definitely last week fell into that trap. Sunday night created the schedule, and all it did to me was stress me out and worry about what I was going to do, and worry that I wasn't getting enough done. So once I kind of threw that by the wayside and still tried to think of some things we could do throughout the day, it just helped me feel calmer, and I feel like that feeds to our kids as well.
Right. And people are different on that note. Some people feel more calm when they have a schedule, and some kids really thrive with a schedule. So this is just, we're not saying that you shouldn't have a schedule. It's more know yourself and know what helps you to stay calm and do that. Yes. Knowing that this is a blip in time. We're going to get past this. We're going to survive. Yeah.
100% agree with you. Everybody is so different, and parents different, child's different, the relationship is different. So figuring out exactly what works best for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so how is division of responsibility different now? What are you seeing, Rachel, that makes our take on this, maybe our advice shifts a little bit?
So I think I'm seeing a couple of things. I think that for parents, it feels a little scarier right now, in a couple different ways. I think there's what you mentioned at the beginning, Yafi, with this like not wanting to waste food piece. Like there's this shortage of food, and or it's hard, not shortage. I will say it's harder for us to get food. Like
Yeah.
it's harder for us to get the foods that we would normally just not even think about, and we've never really. I personally have never really thought about, oh, I can't get what I usually get at the grocery store. It's going to be
Yeah.
more difficult. So I think there's that piece of it that just feels a little scarier. And that's leading some parents to feel more anxiety of what their kid is eating. So they don't want their kids to be wasting food or, taking more than they're going to eat. So a lot of parents are feeling this pressure.
Mhm.
And then I think that the other piece
Remember, let me watch Blippi.
parents are feeling the pressure of their kids to eat because they're
And
not
that's
foods that they normally offer. Feeling that my kid's not meeting their nutrition needs, vegetables or fruit, whatever it is, eating this and kind of feeding off of that pressure you're giving, you're kind of feeding off of it. So I think the main thing is kind of that anxiety piece and how we respond is just feeling different right now. And I think that it's harder to want to follow the division of responsibility. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. And I think that you were cutting up a little bit, not the video, but the audio. I'm not sure if my viewers saw that, but so you were saying that it's just a more anxious time right now. It's harder to want to follow it, and we're concerned about the nutrition, and we'll talk about how to be sure that your child's getting enough nutrition, and some favorites are gone, and we just need um, to kind of relax as much as we can. And I definitely want to get into a post that Noreen Hunani did you see? I tagged you in a post on Instagram earlier. I should have given you a heads up, but Noreen Hunani, she's a fantastic feeding therapist and dietitian in Canada, and she made this great post on exactly what we're covering, and so everyone should go check that out. But I wrote down some of the content, and I definitely wanted to tag her, and you can find her on it's difficult because she doesn't have a standard name. So Noreen, Naureen, Hunani, Hunani, nutrition. That's her tag on Instagram. And she got into this a little bit, and we'll get into this more toward the end because I put all of her information in a section just so that I could say, like, this is what Noreen's talking about, and now go read her post. Yeah, so that's what makes it different now, is not that it's actually different, it's more the perception that it's different, and the fact that we might not be able to get the normal brand names. Hang on a sec, I have to, Mom. Boys, can you just please put on Blippi for him for a sec? Just do it, okay? We all take turns. It is what it is. Thank God for Blippi. He's probably making a fortune. Okay, so let's talk about specifically if a safe food isn't available. And I often talk about how at the beginning we should get away from packaging. And that's not to say that packaged foods are bad. It's more that if you're using a packaged food, you should take it out of the package before giving it to your child, because sometimes those packages aren't available. Sometimes the brand isn't available. Sometimes it is exactly the same thing, but the brand changes the colors or changes the character on it, and that can really upset a child. So if you can be proactive about that by taking the yogurt out of the yogurt cup, taking the granola bar out of the packaging before giving it to the child, you're going to set yourself up for a little bit more success as far as kids kind of hooking into a certain brand of marketing. These companies are so smart, and they have child psychologists on board helping develop this marketing, but it can really cause a problem for us when they shift their marketing, or if a very specific product isn't available. So now we're on the other side of that, where people maybe do have kids who are stuck on very specific products with specific characters on it, and those are not available. Hang on, I have to mom again. Listen to me. Listen to me. Turn it on. Turn it on. Okay, I'll turn it on for you. I will do it through my phone. I'm taking over the TV. Okay, while I do that, Rachel, if you could just go for it on this subject, what do you think?
I'll keep chatting about what you mentioned. I totally agree with you. And I think that, it can be really hard, and especially right now, you know, food. Hear me okay?
Oh my God, this has to stop. Sorry.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I can't use my phone. Okay.
Anyway, when we think about safe foods and thinking about those foods that aren't available, I have a couple recommendations that I think about for that. I first want parents to hopefully have or create some kind of like comprehensive list of all of their kids' preferred foods their child is eating, so they can maybe use that list to see, even if, let's say, a crackers isn't available, is there a cereal that they can replace that with? Or like, it might not even be something from the same food, like a cracker for a cracker, but it might be a cracker for cereal, or like yogurt for like a yogurt drink or something like that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about serving some of those safe foods that might just at this point feel kind of crazy to us. Like an example, let's say you don't have bread available, and bread is one of your safe foods that you provide at dinner. Can you provide Cheerios with dinner time? Or can you provide some other kind of grain, or even, I don't know, like Bamba, or just some other component that you can provide, even if it's not going to be the same food, as long as we're providing something that our child will eat or we know that they like.
Right. So it doesn't have to be something that necessarily goes with the meal, so to speak.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I've been saying for a while that the safe food doesn't have to go with it. You know, if you're having chicken and your child's safe food is peanut butter and jelly, as long as you're putting it on the table at the same time and not waiting for that child to request or demand it, that does fit within the division of responsibility. So we might be playing into that aspect a little bit here, where you're replacing bread with Cheerios, as you said, or pretzels, or what have you. And I know certain accounts on Instagram and Facebook have been focused on how you can make easy versions of bread, and we're really kind of going back in time here, trying to make some stuff from scratch, and that might be another answer if that's a possibility.
Definitely. And I think what's also great about that is if you can involve your kids in making those foods too, you're offering them an exposure to a new food. So maybe they don't end up eating that bread, or you present them that bread, but still giving them exposure to a new food, which is what we're always recommending anyway.
Right. And there are other benefits to that as well. And I will also say that I don't recommend trying to put up live cooking videos, including your children, while talking about the math and measurements. And that has not been working out well for me. But the thing is that you can use those tools. And so while you're cooking with kids, not only is that an exposure, but maybe that can ease up the stress on having to be their teacher, because you can talk about, what if we doubled this recipe? What if we quadrupled this recipe? And if we were to split this in half, how many slices would each person get? And you can use that as a springboard for talking about more academic subjects, if that's something that you're nervous about at this time. So that really hits a lot of different levels. And the thing is that when a child sees that they have contributed toward creating something, whether it's a Lego structure or a picture or a loaf of bread, they have a major boost of confidence. And whether they're going to eat it or not, seeing other people enjoy that is a huge boost of confidence for them. And that's so important when we're all stressed out.
Definitely. Yes. I think that is so important. And just getting them, if you can, like in the kitchen, it's an activity to do as well. It's something fun that you can do, hopefully enjoyably, with your kids. So definitely.
Yeah. And look up bread in a bag. If you're concerned about the mess, you get like, you can make things, they get the texture of feeling the inside of the bag, and your mess stays contained, and you have bread for dinner, and it hits so many levels.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about decreasing food waste. A lot of families who were not concerned before about decreasing food waste are now very concerned. So how do we address that concern and keep it from being a major stressor at the table?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think the first point here is that we still want to be following the division of responsibility, where we're still not putting pressure on our kids or forcing them to eat, a certain amount, because that again is going to backfire and just create more stress. So things that we can do would be, for example, offering a smaller portion size. Maybe if you're plating your food, giving them less of a portion size, and saying, if you want more, you can have more, but trying not to overdo it. I know sometimes, and I think a lot of these recommendations are for general as well, but sometimes when we plate our kids' food, we end up putting a portion that we would think of for ourselves. So just thinking about like what a portion size looks like. And of course they can have more if they want more. The other thing that I love to do is think about how we can reuse leftovers. So I try to always save our family's leftovers, separate my kids. I know, you can always serve it the next day, but a lot of times kids are, and mine specifically, if I'll eat something one night and then I serve it for lunch the next day, and they're like, no, and it's like,
they don't want to see it again. Yeah, I get that.
So thinking about creative ways that you can do that. So like, for example, we'll sometimes put beans into a quesadilla, or I'll make like a veggie scramble with eggs and leftover vegetables, or putting something, maybe even like leftover chili into a grilled cheese sandwich, which I know and some of these ideas for kids who are more active might not be the best, but just thinking about how can you serve that again, and how can you reuse those so you're making the most of them. One of the things I love to do is when I make a smoothie, sometimes if I have a little leftover, I'll bake it into cookies. So I'll like put an egg in there and some flour and a few other things, and then I bake it into cookies. So it's completely different. But I'm reusing that and kind of being creative in how we repurpose.
Right. And if you have an ice cream machine, one of those plug-in ones, you can make ice cream out of it. You can make popsicles out of it. You can even make fruit leather out of it. If you've got some parchment paper, you can smooth it out and bake it at a low temperature for a long time and make fruit leather.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I'll have to try.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. Look up a recipe, but it's like you bake it at 200 degrees for 4 or 6 hours or something, but it works out nicely. And then if you use parchment paper, then you just cut along the line and roll it up, and it looks like the one right from the store.
Ooh,
so
awesome.
Yeah, that's a great idea to do with that. But one of my ideas that I have, I guess I should plug my new book, the Stage by Stage Baby Food Cookbook, is the leftover mashed potato soup. I don't know, maybe your mashed potatoes taste good leftover. Mine don't. I've tried this, like mixing it with eggs and making patties out of it, and it's just a gross disaster. So, if that's your thing, if it turns out well on your end, go for it. But for me, not cool. So what I do is I take the leftover mashed potatoes and put it in some broth and blend it up, and then just dump in some frozen veggies, and it's leftover mashed potato soup. It's like creamed mashed potato soup. And if you put in some chicken that's already cooked, then you've got deconstructed chicken pot pie. It's really delicious.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. I cannot wait to try that.
Yeah, and you only need a cup or two of mashed potatoes for that. So that's the amount that you're not going to serve it as mashed potatoes again, because it's either, kind of congealed, or it's not enough to serve again. So you have to do something else with it. So making it into a soup is a great idea, and you can do that with a lot of different things.
Yes, and there are so many recipes and ideas out there for so many different ingredients. So I think that there's lots of ways to be creative with some of that stuff.
Yeah, or like look up empanadas. You make a simple empanada dough and put your leftovers in empanadas, and you bake it, and all of a sudden it's something totally different. And you need less of it per person, so that helps to stretch it a lot.
Yes. Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah. So just circling back to the portion sizes, I think it's great you mentioned that we often serve our kids the idea that we think we would eat. And especially if we're doing something where we are cutting back on, like, we're waiting until after our kids are done to eat to see how much food is left.
Mm-hmm.
Not a perfect situation, but that's a reality in a lot of families. It's important to remember that your own feelings can impact the amount of food you give your child. So keep in mind that their portion size is the size of their fist. And it's a great tool to use, because as they grow, their fist grows, their stomach grows, their portion size grows appropriately. And just to repeat what Rachel said, they can have more than one portion. It's just that that's the amount that you put each time on the plate in order to reduce food waste. And also it works for picky eaters, because being overwhelmed could cut their appetite.
Right.
And if they have a big plate of food in front of them, especially a plate of food that has a lot of unfamiliar components to it, having portion sizes that are too big could overwhelm them, and then they're not going to be interested in eating at all.
Exactly. So this is advice is,
Yeah, this is timeless. Okay, so our next point was balance versus joy. And I posted on this on Instagram. We always want to go for balance, but balance isn't per meal. Nutrition isn't a sprint, it's a marathon.
Right.
So, and that's always true. These things we're saying are always true. So we don't look for balance at each individual meal. We look for it over the course of a few days. But even then, don't look at each plate. Look at your child's face, not at what they're eating.
Yeah.
Enjoy this time.
Yes, I agree. And I think that two very important components of feeding our family is sitting together with the family and having family meals, and then also modeling for our kids and modeling the behaviors we want to see in them. And sometimes I think those points are overlooked, but those two things are really something that during this time we should be able to hopefully do. We can hopefully sit with them, especially because we're home more with them. And have even if it's just a few minutes of sitting together and then modeling, eating together with them, eating the same they're eating, because those are things that
Mm-hmm.
eating.
Yeah, it's so true.
And I agree with you in what you're saying in the kind of looking at each meal, looking at kind of what they're eating over a week or 2 weeks or even over a month. I think that sometimes families can get so focused. My child barely ate anything. But if you look at what they're meeting all needs, so that's what's going to be most important. And now we want to make sure we're good and we're providing the foods that we have and doing the best we have.
Right. Yes, we're providing the foods we have, doing the best we can, and remembering that this time is temporary. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult to remember that because we don't know when it's going to end. And our entire world has shifted, and everything is upside down, and we don't have an end point. And that's really difficult. This is temporary. We don't know when it's going to end. But whatever happens during this time on a physical level, we can recover from this. We need to protect the emotional level, because if we handle this in a way that causes a lot of drama and a lot of strife and causes a lot of tension between family members, that's something that's going to last longer than a minimal deficiency of something, or it's going to be more difficult to recover from. So it's important to remember that.
Yeah.
And so I will, it's very fortunate that I published 2 books during this time, but I'm going to tell you about this other book that I published just because Amazon just said that they are giving 2 months of free Kindle. Ooh. And so everyone can have 2 months of Kindle downloads for free. So that being said, this other book is available in Kindle form on Amazon. So you can sign up for the Kindle thing that Amazon is doing, and then go get my book, because then you can have it for free. But it's called Beyond a Bite, and it's 10 mindfulness activities at the table with kids. And you can have it for free. So go get it. And it's just, you can use these as conversation starters. for the table. And that being said, go Google conversation starters with kids and look up your kids' ages, and it can be really difficult to chill out. It can be really difficult to just sit down and enjoy this time with your kids. But if you have some conversation starters, that can help lighten the mood and bring joy to the whole situation.
Definitely. Yeah, I have a list printed in my house. It's 50 questions to ask your child besides how was your day. So just trying to talk and just be present with your family. I notice I talk a lot about kind of feeding behaviors and dealing with, some of these challenging behaviors at meal times. And I always notice when my husband and I get into a conversation, or when, we kind of start not paying attention to the kids, or we're talking about work, that's when some of these behaviors are occurring. So really trying to engage them in the conversation I found to be so helpful.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Okay, so we talked on the phone yesterday about how to kind of feel better on our side as a parent and increase nutrition. And you mentioned a few tricks that are pretty cool. And I also have a handout. Anyone can email me, Yaffi@babybloomnutrition.com, and I'll give the handout. But you had some that I hadn't thought of. So go run with that.
So, there's always like the standard multivitamin that we think of that we can definitely feed our kids. But a lot of kids are hesitant to take that, or you don't have it on hand. So one of the things that I like to think about is fortified foods. So for example, cereal is a really great one. Cheerios, a lot of kids like Cheerios, and they're fortified with a lot of. So can you provide your child with Cheerios or another fortified cereal? The other thing that I like to use quite often is to add infant cereal, so like an infant rice or oat or mixed cereal, to baked goods, because those are also fortified with nutrients. And, adding that to maybe a cookie that you're making or some kind of muffin that you're making can also be get in there that you feel that your child is eating, or that you're fortified foods. Those are the main things, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, my kid is asking me to make popcorn. In a little bit, sweetheart. Oh, you're momming over there too.
This ended, so that's okay though.
Yeah. Okay, so that's easy ways to boost nutrition. And you know what? I agree on the multivitamin thing. I don't usually give my kids multivitamins, because the idea is that if you have a varied diet, you can meet all of your needs. But our vitamin bottle is empty because I guess I'll show you what this is. Pure Encapsulations, Pure Pals with iron. They also have without iron. I am not sponsored. I just like that one. But yeah, we went through a whole bottle because I've been really on top of the vitamins, and it's not something that we generally do. So I'll talk about some of the other points that Noreen brought up, which are some points that we have. And I see we have another special guest over there. Hi.
I'm going to give you...
That's okay. We've got one behind me.
Okay.
So Noreen was saying that it's important to maintain a schedule right now. So the thing is that kids need boundaries, and that's why division of responsibility is important, because it provides boundaries. We need to be sure to maintain a schedule, not because we need to have some false semblance of control, but because kids thrive with predictability. Also, if we have a schedule around food, if we can be sure to feed them every 2 to 3 hours. If we don't have that schedule, maybe we're going to forget and they'll get cranky, or maybe we're going to be grazing constantly and they won't have an appetite to meet their needs, which means they're going to be hungry constantly. It's like an endless cycle.
Yes.
So we have to stick with the schedule. Some schedule. Yeah.
I agree. And it's funny, I have a post actually coming out about this tomorrow, because I think that with like this routine, like having that feeding routine in place, I have noticed we don't have a lot of other structures. We have that, this is mealtime, this is snack time. Just that structure can be so.
Yeah, it relieves anxiety on both sides of the equation, but we also need to keep in mind that we need to have some flexibility with that because things are a little bit different, appetites are different. So on the one hand, we have the schedule, but we don't have to be rigid with it. We can be a little bit fluid with it, but it's important to have something. And this, I'm sounding really wishy-washy here, but it also goes back to what works for you as a family. And what works in general for you as a family might not be what works right this second.
Yeah, sometimes I like to think of it as a routine versus a schedule because I think sometimes schedule can feel like, a little too scheduled, so to speak. But routine, I find it kind of has something.
Yeah, yeah. What else? Oh, be sure to honor your child's hunger and fullness cues. Be sure to listen to your child when they say they're hungry. Maybe they're going to be eating out of boredom or anxiety, and there are ways to talk about that as well. But right now, it's important to pay attention to what they're telling you and what their biological signals are telling you. If they're throwing a fit on the floor, they're probably either hungry or tired, right? I mean, it's momming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, I don't know if this will be helpful for people, but I'm getting a lot of questions about how kids are complaining that the usual foods they have aren't available and are feeling upset about it and, are throwing tantrums because of that. And a couple of things that I have found is one thing is if you can maybe have your child help you create the meal so they know what to expect. And giving them a little bit of autonomy when it comes to planning it out. I mean, not necessarily letting them totally set the meals, but just letting them know writing it out. So then when the meal comes and they're what they want, and it's something like, you can say, well, let's look at our menu.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece to that, I think it's important to really empathize with your child when there isn't something like this really stinks. We wanted this and we don't have it on our list the next time we go to the grocery store. Instead of trying to make them think like everything's okay.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that's very important to empathize, and that's something I forget fairly often.
That's easier said than done. It's easy for me to say that here, but that it's hard to actually do it.
Yeah, well, it's hard for them. It's hard for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and okay, so like you said, and we mentioned cooking with kids and getting them involved, involving them in the meal prep and the meal planning. And if they request something that isn't on the table at that moment, same advice as usual. Hey, that sounds really great for breakfast or for dinner tomorrow. Or, hey, we don't have that right now, but let's put it on the list. Just like you said, that's great advice. And we need to manage our own expectations because a lot of times the problem isn't the kids and it's not their behavior at the table and what they're eating or not eating or even what the store has or doesn't have. It's our expectations. And our expectations right now should be lower than usual. And our expectations usually should be lower than they actually are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's hard. I mean, I've noticed myself just reaching my boiling point a lot quicker and feeling more frustrated in general. And I think it can be really hard to step back from that and to realize we are going through a really difficult time and we're all feeling these emotions.
Yeah, it's very true. Also, avoid tricking your child. So this is something we've talked about before. It's just even more important now because you might feel more drawn to that type of activity. If you are making spinach muffins, great. Bring your kid into the kitchen so they can see the spinach going into the blender. It's not tricking when they're involved, but don't sneak things in on them. It brings mistrust into the feeding dynamic, and that's not something that's going to benefit them overall.
Definitely. Yeah. I've seen kids turn away from food when they realize what's happening and then lead to that distrust from their parents too. So very good point.
Yeah. And then the other point that Noreen offered was Shimi, can you please keep your voice down? Offer simple meals with recognizable ingredients. So you might not have the normal yogurt or the normal crackers. But if you're able to offer meals that have a few recognizable components and the child can look at that and say, I know what that is, they'll feel a lot more comfortable. And maybe that'll counteract the not having that yogurt.
Yes. Yeah. I know you and I both talk a lot about these DIY meals, and you have an awesome handout on this, but just providing these very simple ingredients like making taco night, and it's black beans and, wrapped tomatoes and tortillas and cheese, making it simple, it's simple for our kids, but also for ourselves too, and making it just less complicated when we're offering.
Right. Yeah. And if anyone wants that handout, email me, Yaffi@babybloomnutrition.com. I'm happy to hand that out. And that's something that's really good to do. You can take that list of 25 different meal ideas and adapt it to whatever you have going on right now. And taco night, that's great. You know what? I tried to make a video on making tortillas, but you know what? But Danny was able to actually make a video with making corn tortillas. So if you want to see how to make corn tortillas, go either hit up Pinterest or go visit Kid Food Explorers, kid.food.explorers. She did a video. My video was taken down because YouTube is short-staffed right now, and somehow it got flagged for inappropriate content and was taken down halfway through. Who knows? Whatever. Anyway, so I think we gave a lot of great advice there. Is there anything you want to add before we go be moms again?
No, I think that was it. Yeah, I think we covered all of our key points. So awesome.
Yeah. So if you want to find Rachel, because you do want to find Rachel, it's nutrition.in.bloom on Instagram. And what's your website?
My website is just nutritionandbloom.com. I have a guide all about, it's called 4 Steps to Helping Kids Try New Foods. So it covers a lot of what we talked about in here and a lot of kind of how we take the pressure off and help our kids work to try new foods. And it's nutritionandbloom.com/guide. And then I have a private Facebook group too that's free that anyone can join, and we talk all about feeding kids. So you can find that just Nutrition and Bloom. You can probably just search for me and find it. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really didn't want to tackle this on my own, and I'm very happy to almost meet you in real life, right?
One day after all of this, we'll meet up and it will be lovely.
Yeah. Well, you're in San Diego and my brother's in San Diego, so hopefully that'll happen.
Yes, that sounds great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And usually I say I'm here every week on Tuesday at 1:15 p.m., but who knows at this point. So I will see you when I see you. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.
Bye.